The Field of 68 Media Network presents Red is the New Orange, a Syracuse basketball podcast.
Vince intercepts a pass, breakaway for the freshman guard, he flies and slams! Aerial assault from Judah Mintz.
Looking to go back door to Bell, they get it to a near corner three, knocks it down! Chris Bell, the sharpshooter.
Bringing you everything you need to know out of the 315.
Up top, Williams surges ahead, up with the right hand and in. A pretty up and under move from Benny Williams to beat his man.
Over to Taylor, he skips into the lane, puts up a floater, it drops in.
Let's get it started with your hosts, Ian Unsworth and Johnny Gadamowitz.
College hoop season is back, and more specifically, Syracuse basketball is back. As we welcome you on into another edition of Red is the New Orange. As always, Johnny Gadamowitz, Ian Unsworth with you. Before we break down game number 1 against the Moyne Dolphins, you can press pause. It's okay. Go give us a like. Go give us a subscribe. Go check us out at F68_Cuse on Twitter, part of the Field of 68 podcast network, which has been absolutely buzzing over the course of the past couple of days. Already a couple of wild results across the college basketball world as we sit here and record this on Thursday morning, coming off a night last night where Columbia takes down Villanova, by far the craziest result, at least in my mind, so far this year, but a bevy of storylines. And no shortage of storylines from a Syracuse standpoint. Ian, how we doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Stayed up a little bit too late worrying about Syracuse basketball after Monday. There are some holes in this team that Moyne, a smaller team that played extremely fast, exposed. And there was also a lot of insecurity throughout the lineup. Guys were nervous. Guys were scared. 5 turnovers in the first 5 minutes. Like, come on. But even on a really bad offensive night, Syracuse got its feet under him and won the game. But you think back to Colgate last year, it was the same style of game. You thought the Orange might pull away. They start getting to the rack at the end of the first half. Momentum starts building, but Moyne punches right back. The Dolphins, credit to him, key bucket after key bucket.
Yeah, for those of you that might have missed it, 86-82, the final in the JMA Dome back on Monday night. I'm going to attempt to be your voice of reason. I'm going to try to talk you off the ledge. And I want to start with reason number 1 that you just alluded to, Ian. They won the basketball game. Syracuse's record is 1-0. Syracuse's record is not 0-1. If it is a different result, if they find a way to lose that game and don't get a couple of big stops down the stretch, we are having a very, very different conversation. But they didn't. All you can ask them to do is win the games that are out there in front of them, and they did that. And I understand that we're in this era of college basketball where it's net rankings this and Ken Palm that, and how much you beat opponents by matters. But I can't have that conversation on November 7th. This team on November the 7th is going to look, I think we would both agree, very different than it's going to look on January 7th. We got a month and a half of non-conference play. Sounding the alarm after a win on season opening night number 1 is something that I just cannot stomach at this point in time.
I don't know if there's an alarm to sound, but there are slight concerns that creep in after we were both very optimistic after these 2 exhibition games. You and I were both in the Syracuse is going to ride the gravy train to a really competitive ACC slate. On one hand, there's the team has time to mesh. The team is going to grow. There are a lot of new guys. There are a lot of young guys. But at the same time, you could say the same thing for Moyne. Whole different team. Lost their 2 leading scorers. Uses. And if you throw a 5-on-5 game together on a blacktop, outdoor courts, double rims, just 10 random dudes playing pickup, the more talented team usually wins. And a lot of the times it's not that close. And it should have been the situation on Monday. Syracuse, the more heralded team, the more talented team, recruiting-wise, rankings wise, analytics wise, it should not have been this close.
My pushback on that would be, though, yes, you're right. The talent department on paper, Syracuse checks every box relative to Moyne. But I think at the same token, there's a little bit of this sense of, okay, because it's the regular season, now everything magically is going to fall into place. And clearly that wasn't the case. You alluded to it earlier. This team is new. This team is young. They've got a lot of growing up to do. What did Red Autry say after every exhibition game in his press conference? We got a lot to work on. Well, guess what? Against Moyne, you saw that, right? Maybe they are not as head and shoulders as better than the Dolphins as we thought they were, but that's okay. Again, because it's early, they're young, they're new, guys are taking on new roles. And I think there was a little bit of this misconception that this light switch was going to turn on when all of a sudden games started to count. That's not really how it works.
My problems don't stem necessarily from the newness and the young nature of this team, though. At least watching that game on Monday. Letting guys get to the cup is not necessarily because you're young. And Syracuse had one freshman, in its starting five. And dudes were getting to the cup. Against Eddie Lampkin, who picked up 2 fouls in 6 minutes. And as we talked about ad nauseum in the preseason, he's in his 5th year of college basketball. He's made it to the NCAA tournament before. All this sort of stuff where he's supposed to be a stabilizing force.
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening.
And he got played off the floor. Moyne runs a different style than we'll see from many ACC teams, many Power 5 teams that have a traditional big. Moyne's going to space you out. They're going to dribble drive and try to shoot the three. And they did it. I mean, the Dolphins as a squad took 25 threes. And Red Autry said that was on the lighter side of the shooting volume. But still, you can't be late on help. You can't not slide your feet and get in front of someone. But some of the matchups weren't good for Syracuse. There were a lot of switches in the first half that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Guys didn't know whether to go under or over on screens. Lampkin got put in tough spots. And that's why he picked up those 2 fouls. Late closeouts. He goes out of the game and Moyne goes up 9. Against a better team, especially early on in the season, they're going to run away with that thing in the first half. And we saw that happen last year. Think about that Gonzaga game in Maui. Syracuse got down a bit, and then Gonzaga, with all its experience and all its different scoring volume, just stretched the lead out. I don't know. I was not convinced with what we saw defensively, Johnny, and that's my main problem.
But doesn't it give you some level of, I don't know if reassurance is the right word, but doesn't it give you some level of optimism that practically everything in the world that could have gone wrong? Because let's be frank, like you just spelled out for us, everything did. This team missed 11 free throws. They made 4 3-pointers on 22 attempts, no less. Like, this was not a pretty game. Donnie Freeman shot the ball terribly. I think it was 3 of 12. Moyne seemingly went through stretches where they didn't miss. They shot nearly 50%. And still, you found a way to win the game. I think it's good that almost these problems got exposed early, so now they can be addressed. Because let's be honest, you look at this non-conference, Ian, right? And we've mentioned how there are definitely some opponents on there that we expect Syracuse to take care of business against. Moyne was one of them. But they've got matchups with Texas. They've got matchups with Tennessee. If a couple of weeks from now, Syracuse is hanging around in those games, and let's say they lose to Tennessee by 9 points, they lose to Texas by a couple of buckets, and they get through the non-con relatively unscathed, you really think we're going to turn around and look at November 7th? Oh, but you only beat Moyne by 4. And I think that's my point. If you rewind to the last time Syracuse made the NCAA tournament, which is way longer than it should have been, but you look at the non-conference that year, there were some wins that weren't pretty. They barely got by Bryant. They barely got by Northeastern, right? So I think my point is, Was it perfect? No, but it was never going to be perfect. This was night number one. I know it's a 4-point win. I know it's Moyne. I know the defense didn't look good, but let's just take it one game at a time and be content with the result that they ultimately were still able to achieve.
All right. Well, if we're going to be content with the result, the guys need to step up. Guys need to put it on themselves. Yes, we don't get much time with the players post game. It's all Red Autry, and unlike his predecessor, he's not going to call guys out and rake them over the coals when they have bad games. Cool. That's just fine. I do not need a college coach to tell me that a player has had a bad game. I can see that myself. And quite frankly, anybody watching that game could tell that Jaquan Carlos looked pretty uncomfortable. Anyone watching that game could tell you that Donnie Freeman saw a guy back off him and was like, all right, I'm going to shoot it. But it wasn't really a confident shot. It was a lot of, okay. And Eric Devendorf, I think, did a great job of pointing it out a couple times on the broadcast where he said, Freeman's got it in the 2-3 zone that Moyne broke out in the second half, but he would put it on the floor. He didn't really know what to do with it. His head was scrambled. So, yes, those things should work themselves out. And hopefully it's just a symptom of first game jitters. But again, a lot of guys had first game jitters. And they all popped up in different areas. Starling didn't want the ball. Lampkin's picking up these fouls. Freeman is unsure about his shooting. Carlos not only gets attacked on the defensive end, but takes some strange shots offensively. I don't know. I was not convinced because every single player that seemed to be a highlighter guy at the beginning of the season did not have an impact, or not the impact they were supposed to until the second half.
How about the head coach, Red Autry, as he always does, addressing the media post-game as far as his evaluation of his team's performance? And the head man siding with Ian a little more on this one, feels like there is definitely plenty of room for growth.
I thought we were a little tight. I thought, a lot of our guys, it's their first time playing here, our transfer, Eddie, Jaquan, like they just, I think, they made the game a little bit bigger than what it needed to be, instead of just playing. So I thought that was, so I was just really trying to tell those guys to relax, calm down. Let's keep trying to defend, get some rebounds, and, finish the plays and get up the court and take our shots. Really just trying to, keep giving them some confidence. Again, you could tell they were pressing. Again, we missed so many easy shots around the basket. So again, me just trying to keep their heads up and their confidence up and, trying to, get them to defend.
I appreciate the honesty from Red Autry. I really do. I think we've seen that through these first couple games. He's not going to sugarcoat things. He's going to tell it like it is. And I think that's something that the entirety of the media obviously respects. By the way, leave us a comment. What do you think? Are you worried after Syracuse's 4-point win over Moyne, or are you optimistic that this is nothing more than a blip on the radar? What I will say, Ian, and we won't get into a ton of Colgate today because that game not until Tuesday, so our Monday episode will feature a preview of the Raiders. But whatever the issues are, and you pointed out a number of them, they've got to figure them out quick because this is a Colgate team that, as the Orange have learned the hard way the past couple of years, can really make you pay. Don't want to get into too much of Matt Lengel's crew right now, though. Obviously, we will save that for our Monday episode. We're talking Moyne here on Red is the New Orange. Of course, Johnny Gadamowitz, Ian Unsworth with you as always. The Orange did not play their best game. Moyne played a pretty darn good one. Syracuse still finds a way to get the win. Something that I think Red Autry was pleased with listening to the rest of that post-game presser, Ian, and I think is something that Syracuse fans will be happy with, is that even in a game where Eddie Lampkin does get into some foul trouble, Jyaire Davis really showing up and coming in off the bench and giving Syracuse some really much-needed minutes. And it showed on the box score. Syracuse had 20 offensive rebounds. Obviously, the disparity in size between the Orange and the Dolphins plays a role there. But it's nice to know that, okay, if it takes Lampkin a little while to establish that real rhythm, that while Davis, maybe not as tall in stature, he can still come in and be a real presence down low as well.
A lot of patient post play is what made his difference. Lampkin, when he got the ball, was trying to get after it in the post, but he was a little rushed. And with those 2 fouls, you don't want to back someone down, pick up a charge call, and really throw your team into craziness. So Davis came in and took his time. What impressed me, Johnny, is he got to the free throw line 11 times. There were still a couple opportunities for him to tack a couple more points on. But he played controlled. He and Peter Mastorovich, when they both came off the bench together in the first half, changed the tenor of the game for Syracuse. It went from, all right, everyone's getting to the rim against them, to, okay, here's some rebounds. Mastorovich even stripped someone at the top of the arc and led a fast break himself. There was calm brought into the Syracuse team, even from a 18-year-old freshman playing in his first collegiate game. They brought a different tempo to the team and a different sense of security. And Davis, being the more experienced one, being someone that's been down the stretch of a conference competition before, has 9 and 7 in the first half and just keeps on going. No one on Lemoyne could handle him.
He was a beast down low. 5 offensive rebounds himself. Also got to the line pretty often too, and just really made it routine to be absorbing contact down low. What did you make of the minutes distribution in the backcourt, Ian? Because we hardly saw any Elijah Moore. You alluded to Lucas Taylor. He didn't have his best game by any stretch as well, just 1 of 5 from the floor. Were we maybe sold a bill of false goods about this backcourt depth, or you think it was just a one-time deal as far as those minute restrictions being a little more sharp than we've seen through the exhibitions?
I don't think Taylor had it on Monday. I think that's the underlying theme throughout this game is the minutes are iffy because guys didn't have it. And I wish Elijah Moore played a bit more than 2 minutes. It's not like Lemoyne was really pressuring the ball in the backcourt. But Carlos, even though offensively he was pretty out of whack, still had 6 assists. He still contributed. My main problem with the backcourt was that Starling took forever to really grab a hold of the game. It felt like there were runs when Lemoyne got back in the game in the second half. Even when Lemoyne took control in the first half, even though he was off the floor for some of it. But mainly in the second half. Chris Bell's starting to heat up. He rips off like 10 points in 4 or 5 minutes to start the second half.
Thank goodness he did.
Yeah, because Syracuse could have been in a dangerous hole if Chris Bell didn't go off on his little mini run there. 10 points in the first 7 minutes, that is, of the second half. And it was a 3 pump fake. Like Chris Bell showed a very improved offensive arsenal. We'll have a lot more to talk about with Chris Bell as we get deeper into the season because we know he can score against teams like this without hesitation. But the early returns look really good.
And I think what made it even more so encouraging for me was that his first half was a little bit shaky, right? His ability to kind of compartmentalize, put it behind him, then go out there and do what he needed to do down the home stretch of the game, which I think, for my money, ended up kind of being the difference. If you don't get that, rejuvenated version of himself, I'm not so sure what the scoring output looks like in that second half.
And he also has that big defensive play at the end of the game, shoots a dribble handoff, completely strips the ball from the big, and runs it down the floor, gets the foul, and that seals the deal. But back to Starling, though. Since he's a returner, the leash is a little bit different. He is one of the few guys that is coming back, is a second-year starter. So Coach Autry trusts him a bit more. He probably didn't go up to JJ and say, hey, relax, take it easy. You got this. This isn't your first game in the Dome. So Coach Autry is going to give you some space. You'll figure it out. But I think there were times in the second half when someone needed to go up to JJ Starling and say, Judah Mintz isn't here anymore. This is your team now. You have to take the ball. You have to get to the cup. And you have to get a big basket. That didn't really come to fruition until the last 3 minutes or so of the second half. I thought there were times when he was just out there. He was really just out there because Carlos had the ball, or it got to Freeman, who was kind of a black hole at times. I want Starling to take a bit more control because when he caught the ball and attacked with it, Lemoyne couldn't stop him. But those times seem to be few and really far between.
Yeah, maybe a little timid, maybe part of that early season growing pain narrative. I'm right there with you. I think it's no secret that if Syracuse is going to go anywhere this year, I think I said preseason that I expect Donnie Freeman to lead the Orange in scoring, but that's not to say that J.J. Starling can't be that dude on this team as well. And they're going to need the best version of J.J. Starling if they want to, really make a run at things down the home stretch of ACC play. Ian, any closing thoughts before we sign off and look forward to Colgate early next week?
I'm glad they have a week to sit on this game.
A lot of time off, which is weird for it being so early.
Yeah, and is there a dome football game on Saturday?
This Saturday, I know next Saturday they're out west at Cal. I don't know who they are playing.
They're playing BC this week.
That is correct. I don't know if that is in Chestnut Hill, though, or if it is in Syracuse.
I'm on the Cuse Athletics website. This is a complete dereliction of our normal duties here, folks, but we're doing it anyway.
Syracuse is playing Boston College this week at Alumni Stadium in Chestnut.
Interesting. Okay. And it's not like they're hosting any Olympic sports up there for ACC tournaments or otherwise. But regardless, I think having a week to sit on this game and really let guys old and young reflect on it, talk about it in the film room, let the coaches dissect it. I think that'll be really beneficial for next week and for the stretch going forward, because a lot of the times guys just need to get that first one under them. And instead of having a week to stew in a loss or have to get right back on the floor, play another game, and it's like, oh, snap, I just missed my first shot. I got that, those butterflies coming back. Dudes can really let this settle, really get over it, and they can watch some film, because there were a lot of cool offensive wrinkles that were worked into the first half that kind of fell by the wayside later on because Lampkin was in foul trouble and some guys didn't have it, and Lemoyne played zone. But I think there is stuff to build on from a schematic standpoint. Offensively, there is definitely strides to be made and encouraging progress there.
So Syracuse, a 4-point win over Lemoyne. The Orange are 1-0 to begin year 2 under Red Autry. That'll do it for us here on this edition of Red is the New Orange. As always, we'll be back early next week to break down that matchup against the Colgate Raiders. 2-game week for the Cuse next week, back to that normal schedule, quote-unquote normal, if you will. Colgate and Youngstown State as the non-conference train continues to roll on. But like we said, that's it for this time around. We'll chat early next week with Ian. I am Johnny saying so long. No game this weekend, so do whatever you want. Watch some Syracuse football.
Mow your grass,
watch
rake the
some
leaves.
NFL football. Watch some college hoops from other areas across the country. But whatever you end up doing, hope it's a great weekend. And we'll be back early next week to preview Syracuse and Colgate, the Raiders.